Okay, welcome back. In this segment, we're going to talk about some of the tools that you're going to need to have. And I'll do a totally different segment on the tools that you need on your tool belt. But in this case, this is tools that that don't fit in your tool belt. One example of that is having a truck. You've got to show up macho. And you can decide what showing up macho means, but there have been times when, maybe my truck was in a shop, and so I showed up in a Mercury Sable. And every time I did that, the buyer would, and it would never fail, they'd always ask me how long I'd been in business. That was my one mistake. And like I mentioned in the earlier segment, you get one mistake for free. After that, you suck. And so you don't want to use that one mistake, your get out of jail free card on showing up in the wrong kind of wheels. Other tools, you want to keep a hammer to test concrete. It doesn't happen very often. You might only do it maybe once a year, but you've got to have a hammer. Now the concept is that if you hit a hammer on concrete that has soil beneath it, it's going to have a higher sound. If the soil beneath has settled out and down and away, it's going to sound more like a drum, and it's going to sound hollow. And this is one way to know if you're having soil settlement beneath a slab. I have seen a number of homes, especially ones that were built on hillsides, where they poured the slab on loose fill sediment. Then the slab is there and the sediment falls away, and now the slab is starting to crack like there's no tomorrow. And so one way to identify if that slab, if that's actually what's happening, is if you've got a hammer, you can hit that slab in different areas, and you'll be able to tell the difference between the soil being beneath and not. Get a vacuum to get loose insulation. So one of the things you've got to do is you've got to get into the attic, and usually hopefully that's in the living space, unless you're talking about a home that's really old. As a result, you're going to have insulation rain down on the floor inside the living space. And if there's a whole bunch of insulation that you leave, you're the inspector who sucks, who doesn't clean up after himself, and that gets you in trouble. So get a vacuum to get the loose insulation. Don't rely on the homeowner's stuff, borrowing somebody else's stuff to do your job. Not okay. Have the tools that you need. Another is that you're going to be asked if you have a thermal camera. I personally find that I only use my thermal camera maybe 5 to 10% of the time, but if you don't have one, you're going to lose jobs. So I'll provide a link on the website where you can pick that sort of thing up. Another is don't wear shorts. You got to do a little bit better than that. Levi's are adequate. Obviously, you've got to crawl around in crawl spaces, so you don't want to wear slacks or nice pants. But Levi's are part of your uniform. And then, of course, the top side would be something like what you see here, which is a logo that is on your shirt, and something that looks like you didn't just throw on a t-shirt this morning. You've got to have a shoe that is capable to deal with what you're going to be doing. You're going to be climbing perhaps through these heavily wooded areas where there may be nailed wood, there might be weeds, there might be spiders. And so, flip-flops obviously would prove that you're a greenhorn and you don't know what you're doing. So you've got to have some very solid shoes to use as you go through the house. Have a truck, I mentioned that. Know your ladder. One of the guys that I trained, I noticed that as I was training him, and this is one of those extendable ladders, he obviously, as he was trying to manipulate this ladder, he obviously didn't know how to do it. You're going to want to get familiar with your ladder. You're going to want to know how to put it in different positions and look like it's not the first time you've ever had to do that. So go get a good ladder and put it in the full straight out position. Put it in the A-frame position. Put it at different heights before you ever do that sort of thing in front of a client. Because, yeah, if you look awkward doing that, you just lost all your credibility. The next thing is have a good flashlight. have a really good flashlight. Flashlights are just cool. If you're like me, you're probably going to find that you're kind of passionate about good flashlights. Have a good flashlight. Have a backup flashlight. Maybe you have a backup number 3. And of course, you've got to have batteries in your truck so that when things go bad, you're okay. Another thing I would have you be aware of is that part of your tool set is going to be food and water in the truck. Sometimes you're hurrying from point A to B and you really want to stop at McDonald's and get something, but you're already 3 minutes late and you don't want to turn that 3 minutes late into 6 minutes late. And so if you've got food in your truck and water, that takes care of that problem, and you can actually, you don't want to do a full inspection on an empty stomach. It affects the quality of the work, but at the same time, you don't want to show up late either. So if you've got maybe jerky in your truck or one of those food bars, and then the biggest water cup you can find, that provides a lot of forgiveness. Those are the tools you're going to need as a home inspector. Be right back.